First up at noon today, a man who shot and killed his estranged wife as she tried to flee out an open window has been sentenced to prison.
Marcus Lofton was sentenced this morning to 25 to 50 years in prison for second-degree murder and 2 years on a weapons violation.
Police say Lofton shot his wife more than a dozen times a day after being served divorce papers.
It is just after 8 in the morning on a quiet residential street in Grand Rapids, Michigan, when the first gunshots shatter the calm of Union Avenue Southeast. Neighbors, still getting ready for their day, freeze at the sound. Some will later say they counted the shots without meaning to. By the time police arrive, a woman lies on the lawn outside a modest home, and a community that thought it knew this family is about to learn just how much it didn't. Her name was Alicia Danielle Lofton. She was 38 years old. She was a mother of 3, and in the final hours of her life, she had done something many women in dangerous relationships are told to do and are so rarely protected when they do it. She had tried to leave. To understand what happened on that August morning, it helps to understand who Alicia was to the people who loved her. Family members describe a woman who was fiercely devoted to her children, the kind of mother who showed up, who planned for their futures, who was already picturing herself in the crowd at a college graduation, in the audience at a prom send-off. She had an oldest daughter preparing to begin her senior year at Western Michigan University. She had a son getting ready to start his first year at Grand Valley State, and she had a youngest daughter still in high school, with a whole adolescence of milestones ahead of her. Alicia was, by every account from those closest to her, a woman building a life for her family, one she intended to see through. Her relationship with Marcus Lofton began in a way that, by her family's own telling, unfolded largely outside their view. Relatives say they learned about the relationship gradually, through glimpses on social media rather than an introduction. Some who did meet him described an uneasy feeling from the very first encounter. Alicia's father would later say he did not trust the man from the moment they met. But Alicia, like so many people navigating a new relationship, made her own choices, and in February of 2023, she and Marcus Lofton were married. The marriage was brief, and it was troubled almost from the start. Just 3 months after the wedding, in May of 2023, Marcus Lofton was arrested following a domestic violence incident against Alicia. It was serious enough that a condition of his bond required him to have no contact with his wife at all. For a time, that order stood between them, a legal boundary meant to keep Alicia safe while the case moved through the courts. But boundaries on paper do not always hold in practice, and by the middle of August, Alicia had made a decision. She was done. She filed for divorce. She began the process of selling the home they had briefly shared. On August 16, 2023, she had her husband formally served with divorce papers. It was, by any measure, an act of courage. It was also, investigators would later conclude, the beginning of the end. The next morning, August 17th, Marcus Lofton came to the house on Union Avenue. According to court records, he later told investigators he had gone there to collect his belongings. What is documented is that an argument broke out between them almost immediately. At some point during that confrontation, Marcus retrieved Alicia's own handgun, a Glock pistol, from a drawer inside the home. The gun discharged. Alicia ran. She fled into a bathroom and locked the door behind her, a small, desperate barrier between herself and the man she had just legally begun to separate from. It did not hold. Court records indicate Marcus forced the door open. With nowhere left inside the house to go, Alicia tried the only exit she had left. She attempted to climb out of a window. She did not make it out. As she tried to escape, Marcus Lofton shot her, not once, but according to court documents, as many as 15 times. Neighbors who had been going about their morning routines heard the gunfire and called 911. When Grand Rapids police officers arrived at the scene, they found Alicia Lofton on the lawn outside the home, unresponsive, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to her head and body. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Marcus Lofton was not there. He had already fled in his SUV. For the detectives who responded that morning, the scene told its own story before a single witness spoke. The bathroom door forced from its frame, the location of the fatal wounds, consistent with a woman who had been shot while trying to climb through a window, trying to run, trying to survive. The firearm, identified as belonging to Alicia herself, now the instrument of her death. Investigators moved quickly to identify a suspect, and it did not take them long. Alicia's history with her husband, the May domestic violence arrest, the no-contact order, the divorce papers served just a day before, all of it pointed in one direction. Marcus Lofton was located and taken into custody that same day. He was charged with open murder and felony firearm, charges that reflected the gravity of what investigators believed had happened inside that house. According to a probable cause affidavit later made public, Lofton himself acknowledged key details of the timeline, that Alicia had served him with divorce papers the day before, that she was in the process of selling their home, and that the two had argued that morning before the shooting. As the case moved toward trial, the picture of Marcus Lofton's history became clearer still. Court records showed he had prior convictions for gun and drug-related felonies dating back more than 2 decades, in 2000, 2002, and 2014. For prosecutors, this was not a portrait of an isolated tragedy, but of an escalating pattern, one that had culminated in the death of a woman who had done everything the system tells victims to do. She had left. She had filed the paperwork. She had a legal order meant to keep her safe. The case went to trial in March of 2025, but after the evidence was presented and the arguments made, the jury could not reach a unanimous verdict. A mistrial was declared, leaving Alicia's family to face the prospect of reliving the case a second time. It would be several more months before resolution came. In July of 2025, Marcus Lofton changed his plea, admitting guilt to second-degree murder and the felony firearm charge, as part of an agreement that guaranteed a minimum sentence of 25 years. At sentencing, held before Kent County Judge Scott Noto, the courtroom heard directly from the people who carried Alicia's absence with them every day. Her aunt, Jennifer Lee, spoke of a niece she had helped raise like a sister, of the discomfort she had felt about Marcus from the very beginning, and of the emails she continued to write to Alicia after her death, even knowing they would never be read. Alicia's father, Arthur Joseph, did not hold back his grief or his anger. He told the court his daughter had hidden the marriage from a family who, he said, had never trusted the man she married. He told Lofton directly that he did not understand how close he had come to facing a very different kind of justice. As he returned to his seat, he looked back at the man who killed his daughter and called him a coward. Lofton's attorney told the court his client felt sorrow and remorse, describing him as someone whose actions that day had shocked even those who knew him. Marcus Lofton himself chose not to address the court. Judge Noto handed down the sentence agreed upon in the plea deal, 25 to 50 years in prison for second-degree murder, and an additional 2 years for the felony firearm charge, to be served consecutively. With credit for the time he had already spent in custody, the arithmetic of Marcus Lofton's punishment was set, but no sentence could restore what his family had lost. What remains in the aftermath is the shape of a life interrupted. 3 children who will graduate, marry, and mark the milestones of adulthood without their mother in the crowd. A father who stood in a courtroom and said there was nothing more he could say because there wasn't. A community in Grand Rapids that watched a domestic violence case unfold in the most public and painful way possible, from an arrest to a court-ordered separation that failed to prevent tragedy, to a killing carried out in broad daylight the morning after a woman finally tried to walk away. Alicia Danielle Lofton's case is, in the end, a story that resists easy resolution because there is no version of justice that gives her children their mother back. But it is also, unmistakably, a story about the danger that so often peaks not before someone leaves a violent relationship, but in the days immediately after. Advocates who work with survivors of domestic violence point again and again to that same narrow, perilous window, the moment when a victim finally takes the legal and practical steps to be free, and an abuser, confronted with the loss of control, becomes most dangerous. Alicia did the things she was supposed to do. She left. She filed. She fought for a future for her children. Her story stands now as both a memorial to who she was and a warning about how far the law still has to go to protect the people brave enough to walk away.